God's word commands us to share the gospel, but many times the experience can be negative. Instead of making a defense of the gospel, Christians can become defensive. I'd like to address that today. Before I do, I want to thank everyone who faithfully gives, and your giving makes the ministry possible. And right now, did have a drop in giving in the month of July, and that could be because some people transitioned back to regular attendance, and because the offering basket hasn't been going around. So we do ask that you would remember, if you haven't been giving, to keep up with the giving so that the ministry can go on as usual. And again, for those of you who have been giving sacrificially and faithfully, we are very grateful. The ladies are getting together this Friday on Zoom. It's the WOW event, and it's going to be dealing with chapter 4, the latter part of chapter 4. So, ladies, at 7:30 this Friday, the ID and everything will be on this email at the bottom of the email, and there will be a reminder by the by Thursday again once more, just so that you are aware of the event. This evening we meet for prayer at 7:30, and I cannot stress enough how important it is that we meet together for prayer. So please join us. And again, all the other meetings take place as usual on the Zoom platform. Visit our website and get to know what goes on, um, and what happens in person, what happens on the Zoom platform. And let's be faithful in our attendance, and let's just encourage each other, especially at this time. And of course, this Saturday at 10:30 in the morning, we do meet. The children's ministry is still not running, but you are welcome to come. The gathering is 1 hour long, so you just come, bring your children with you. We can handle the noise, don't worry about it. And let's worship together, let's encourage each other, and let's take this opportunity to be a light and the salt of the earth. In 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15, we read that we are to be ready to make a defense to everyone who asks us of the hope that is in us. Do so with gentleness and with reverence. With gentleness and reverence. I remember the first time I shared Christ after coming to Christ. I was 14 years old. And when people would challenge me, I would react, I would dig my heels, and I would become argumentative. And until I realized that wasn't the right approach. It took me a while to understand that. I thought I was doing okay, but obviously not according to the standard by God's word. We are to do so with gentleness and with reverence. I was always impressed with Jesus when he was cornered. Um, he always knew what to say. He had the right answer. On one occasion, when they asked him, "Should we pay taxes to Caesar or not?" And Jesus asked for a coin, and then said, "Whose inscription is on this coin?" And they answered, "Caesar's." And the answer, "Well, give to Caesar's what is Caesar's, and give to God what is God's." That was a powerful answer. And he knocked that ball right out of the park. And so I would be impressed with that. I always wanted to do that kind of thing when people would ask me questions, to kind of answer with one of those one-liners, just zing them with those one-liners so they would be silenced. I remember reading how C.S. Lewis, he would often have these open forums when people would be asking questions and he would answer them. There was one professor who challenged him on the issue of the faith, and C.S. Lewis was able to um, basically put him in his place. But he went home and he wasn't pleased with his approach, the way he answered that man, and he asked forgiveness from the Lord, and he vowed never to do that again. You see, the issue is to do it with gentleness and with reverence. In other words, we are to share Christ in the midst of a hostile environment, while people are attacking us, while people are making fun of us and ridiculing us. We are never to give in kind what they give to us. If they treat us with contempt, we are not to use contempt. If they malign us, we are not to malign them. If they put us down, we are not to put them down. we are to answer back with gentleness and reverence. You see, when we give a defense of the gospel, we cannot become defensive. It's not about us. And that's what I didn't understand when I first came to Christ. It's never about us, it's about Christ. And if in the process we get mistreated and ridiculed for his glory, then so be it. Jesus said that if they hated me, they will hate you. And if they hate us for Christ's sake, that's a good thing. We are to rejoice. We are to leap for joy, Jesus says. We are not to take it personally. When we take it personally, we're not really sharing Christ. We're trying to make a point. We're trying to prove something. There's nothing to prove. We're the fragrance of Christ wherever we are. Where if we um, are received and the message is received, then we are the fragrance of life to these individuals. If the message is rejected, then we're the fragrance of death. It makes no difference whether they receive it or not. In other words, it makes no difference with regards to us because it's not about us. It's about Christ and His name and His glory. And so, what we are called to do is simply to be a light in this dark world and to be the salt, as Christ commands us. Nothing more. So, when disciples in the early church would be brought before the Sanhedrin or would be flogged and they would be threatened not to preach, they didn't take it personally. They didn't start arguing. They just left the Sanhedrin rejoicing because they were counted worthy to suffer reproach for Christ's sake. That's beautiful. That's the way we are to see it. So we are to go out into this world, share Christ, give a defense of the gospel without becoming defensive, and therefore do so with gentleness and reverence, knowing that it's all about the Lord and not about us. If we do that, then the Lord will be honored. If instead we become defensive and argumentative, as as it happened to me in my first year of coming to Christ, we'll discover soon enough that that is not what honors the Lord, and we will abandon that approach. So it's okay if you're making mistakes with share about when it comes to sharing Christ. There's a learning curve, but it's a wonderful experience to know that we can be His emissaries in a time when the message is not popular, when it's not welcomed, when the environment is hostile to anything that has to do with Christianity. And we can be at a time like this His mouthpiece. We can speak in His name. What a privilege. Let's not pull back. And if we make mistakes, we'll learn. And as long as Christ is glorified. That's what Paul said when he wrote to the Philippians. He goes, some speak Christ and preach rather out of envy, and some because they know that I've been mandated for the cause of Christ. But whether they do it with the right intentions or with the wrong intentions, it's of little consequence. What I rejoice in mostly is that Christ is being preached. Paul was happy that Christ is being preached. And so, really, we should be rejoicing when Christ is being shared and Christ, the message of the gospel, is being preached. I'm talking about the gospel in its integrity, not the pseudo gospel, not prosperity gospel or social gospel or any kind of other gospel, not the word of faith, not the NAR type of message, but the pure, unadulterated message of the gospel that we find in scriptures. And that is being preached. Even if we make mistakes, even if we stumble along the way, that is honorable and God is being glorified and Christ is exalted. May we share Christ and may we do so for his glory and honor. The Lord be with you. See you this evening at prayer and then Saturday at 10:30.